Hello everyone, welcome back. Nice to see you.
Hi guys.
So we're back in our loft. Were we here last time or were we outside?
I think we've been back.
We've been back to the Lord. Today is, like all of our videos, very exciting, but this one especially. This is the most exciting so far, I think. Possibly.
Arguably.
But we have, ta-da! We have a brand new fragrance to show you, which is still in its shiny wrapper.
So new, yeah. Hadn't even unpacked it.
No, I can't get it off.
Yeah.
So this is Ombre Leather, which is a new release as of the last month or so.
Yeah, very, very, very new.
Purchased exclusively from the Tom Ford boutique.
So it's quite exciting. So we've talked about a Tom Ford fragrance before. One of the best known, best loved of the private blends, which is Tuscan Leather.
Lovely stuff.
Joe's making sure he makes as much noise as possible as you open this, which is good. So you really get the experience. Tom Ford has a very large niche line, the private blend line. I don't know how many are, but there were.
It's more and more, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, there are absolutely heaps of them, which are really great, but they are quite expensive. He also has his normal designer line, which has got some amazing releases, including Grey Vetiver,
which is wonderful,
and Black Orchid.
Yeah, I mean that's what classic, isn't it?
Which is a women's release, but it's a brilliant kind of chocolatey patchouli. But it's easy for us to spend so much time obsessing with the more expensive, the luxury line. So it's always when he has a release in the designer line, in the designer budget as well. It's kind of pricks our interest.
It's exciting, isn't it?
It's also interesting because this has exactly the same name as a fragrance released on the private blend line. 2016. Exactly. Ombre
Leather 16, that's what it's called.
So, yeah, intriguing. I haven't smelt it at all. Joe's obviously smelt it, kind of lived with it a little bit. This is his first bottle, so this is going to be first impression for me.
We'll open it up. We'll give you an unboxing. I don't really like to use that word, but it's in a box.
It is in a box, and it's about to be out of the box.
So,
it's really interesting as well. I kind of feel like it owes something to the private blend style, that it's quite simple, it's quite kind of almost a bit brutal, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, you
could solid.
You could quite easily make a series following that design.
Yeah, beautiful.
And brand new design compared to the other bottles. You know, there's the Grey Vetiver and the sort of EDT, EDP.
Yeah.
There's Noir, which all come in the square bottles, different colours and shades. But fundamentally, the design is the same.
I haven't smelt this at all. So do you
give it a spray?
I'll let you talk a bit.
I mean, we need to get some of the juice out of the sort of the nozzle as well. But I first smelled this, and the thing that struck me was that it was Ombre Leather 16, but sort of done 2 years later on a different budget.
It's impossible. We were talking about this a little bit before I first sprayed this, and it's impossible to think. Well, it's possible for me to think of a Tom Ford leather fragrance without thinking of Tuscan leather. And from that very first spray, it definitely reminds me of it. I don't get that big, that kind of extraordinary opening of Tuscan leather with the kind of the cocaine-y raspberry with kind of a bright kind of saffron.
It doesn't have the punch, does it, in the same way? But this
has got a roundness. But I'm sure there must be a very similar leather accord. The way he's created the leather accord for Tuscan leather, it feels very similar.
It's definitely there, isn't it? Yeah. It has the sort of slightly smooth, suede, smoky aspect.
So ombre means ombre.
I don't know.
Yeah, but it means kind of shadow. So it means dark. It means dark leather.
Yeah.
And there is a kind of darkness. It's interesting because it's got a real balance of kind of freshly kind of tanned leather with a hint of darkness.
There's something underneath it, isn't there? And there's a sort of slight playfulness in the opening as well.
Yeah, there's also a slightly kind of rubbery kind of.
Let's give it a whirl on the hand.
There's a kind of a slight rubbery, almost kind of Play-Doh-y quality to it as well. That kind of. So I almost get a hint of patent leather.
Yeah, there's something beautifully artificial in a good way.
Yeah.
There's something manufactured.
Interesting. So the very first spray, I thought Tuscan leather. I do feel it's kind of steering away a little bit now.
Yeah. It's the DNA, isn't it?
Yeah.
But actually, I think it does lack the seriousness and the austerity of Tuscan leather, which is quite brooding as a fragrance.
I don't know, but there's a darkness to it. I get a real kind of darkness here. I don't feel this is a safe.
There is.
This is not a safe, simple designer scent.
No.
I don't think.
I mean, this is much bolder than a lot of the stuff that's out there on the market today.
Yeah, and I do think if this was in a private blend bottle, I wouldn't bat an eyelid. I don't think I would.
No. I mean, this is the thing. This was Ombre Leather 16 from what I can remember of that fragrance. I don't know whether the ingredients here are slightly more budget versions of themselves. I don't know. I can't tell. To me, it's very well blended.
We were trying to discuss
very good quality.
Just before this video why he's done this, really, because it'd be interesting if he suddenly did Neroli Portofino in a designer bottle at a much cheaper price. You think, well, it's a no-brainer. You go and buy it. And so it's interesting. He's done a private blend. He's released it. Maybe it hasn't done too well, and he's released it slightly lower budget because he thinks this could be mass appealing.
Yeah. It has the potential to sort of go big for him, doesn't it? In a way that Ombre Leather, when it's lined up next to Tuscan Leather in the private blends, would always seem like the B option. To Tuscan Leather.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen now. That in Tom Ford Boutique, this was in the signature line, over on one side of the building, and the private blends were over on the other side. And I think the separation is important, just visually.
Yeah, interesting.
Somehow. But it's damn good. I think.
It's really good.
I really like it a lot.
So I'm just kind of getting first impression, but you've lived with it like a little bit.
I've worn it a bit, yeah. I mean, things that I find different in this straight away are the more I smell the opening. If I had a little sample as well, the more I smell the opening, the more I get this slight cardamom spice.
Yeah, there's a.
I don't know if it's cardamom, but there's something in there of that.
Yeah, but so that
piquancy.
Kind of, exactly. That kind of that bright, sharp kind of spice, almost maybe a hint of nutmeg.
Yeah,
or
could easily be.
Or mace, or something like that, which has got something kind of bright.
Something peppery, dark, and that in a way it gives it a bit energy in the opening, but it also gives it a sort of something underlying as well.
Yeah.
It sort of joins to the middle.
Yeah.
A little bit more than say a raspberry sweet kiss in the top.
Yeah.
And then let's get down to the serious
maybe
notes.
that's good. He's kind of, instead of having the kind of the bright kind of people talk about the cocaine-y petrol note of Tuscan Leather, the way that we'll use with raspberry and saffron, he's kind of tried to achieve the same feeling of light and shade, but using different notes, different ingredients.
Yeah. And there's some floral in the middle there. I don't know.
There's definitely quite a lot of floral.
Yeah. I don't know if there's violet leaf. I know there was violet in Ombre Leather. I'm not getting a lot of violet, but I'm getting more.
I feel that
like
is
like jasmine.
There is violet leaf, and that makes me think of the kind of violet leaf you get in Fahrenheit, and especially Fahrenheit Parfum, where there's a lot of violet.
It has a slightly sort of gaseous. Is that the word?
Yeah,
gaseous
exactly.
Aspect.
But a little bit, kind of petrol, almost a hint of like tyres, kind of worn tyres. Which does
I always think of asphalt as well.
Yes,
hot
exactly.
day
Kind
asphalt.
of like, yeah.
Or there's a smell. I don't know what it is, but there's a smell that this reminds me of from the 80s, which was certain tube stations in London, one of which was Latimer Road. That I don't know whether it's something to do with the coating that they put on the platforms or the roofs, but on a hot day, that's the smell I associate. And it's a weird sort of smell, a slightly industrial.
It is kind of industrial, and it is.
I don't know what it is.
It does make me feel strangely that a lot of people would say Tuscan Leather is definitely manly, but I think that kind of the raspberry and saffron in Tuscan Leather, it does make it possible, for it to be a feminine fragrance.
Yeah.
Still quite a big, bold feminine fragrance, but it will work. Whereas I feel this somehow is even more masculine, because I'm getting more and more of that kind of, we're talking about tyres and petrol and tar and and it's starting to remind me a bit of Fahrenheit.
And it's kind of smoothly done as well, isn't it? I wouldn't say this is loud. It's not light. It's definitely not light.
No, but it's not as big as Fahrenheit. It's not that kind of in your face.
There's a wonderful elegance to it, but I think it's like a wine when you first pour it. Often they're quite tight and brooding, but actually there's a lot going on.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think with repeated wearing and repeated spraying, and again more time in the bottle, opening up over the months, I think there's a hell of a lot in there.
So we've hinted at the difference between this private blend and this kind of designer line. So let's say this is a 100ml eau de parfum bottle, which costs £115.
Yeah.
So it's not
value.
It's not cheap as chips, but it's not hugely expensive. If you get a 50ml, it's £85, which is getting into real kind of designer territory.
Doable.
But it's still upper end of designer prices. But for instance, if you were to buy Tuscan Leather or any of the private blends, you're looking at 158ml for £158 for 50ml, or 230. So this is half the price.
Yeah. And when you bear in mind Ombre Leather 16 was that price, the price of the Tuscan Leather.
So it's interesting to think.
I mean, we've got basically, I think, the same fragrance done for half the price.
It's interesting to think, has he kind of altered? Has he altered the ingredients? Has he altered the formula? Has he managed to produce it, slightly more cheaply? Or was it just that he thought this wasn't really working, it wasn't really selling in the private blend, because sat alongside Tuscan Leather, people would always pick Tuscan Leather over this at the price, but put in a slightly lower price, slightly repackaged, people
I'd be fascinated to know
are going to buy it. And I would struggle to justify paying twice the amount for Tuscan Leather.
I couldn't do it anymore, I think,
as I would for this. And particularly in one of our earliest videos, when we talked about alternatives to Tuscan Leather, we talked about Rosasi's Le Yucam. And I've got a little miniature miniature of the original Tuscan Leather, and I really find that Le Yucam is very, very close to that.
Yeah.
And so therefore I can't see myself buying the new Tuscan Leather, which does feel slightly muted.
Yeah, I mean,
slightly toned down.
Yeah, I told you, didn't I, that I'd smelt Tuscan Leather the other day, the newest formulation of it, and it really lacked the punch of the original. I mean, I wish you could smell the original.
He sounded genuinely upset.
I was gutted.
Like a relative had died or something.
It was awful,
like an old friend had disappeared.
Well, because the bottle I've got still is from about 2008.
Yeah. It's battered and bruised, but it's still
going strong. And back in the day, that thing, that was 12 hours of absolute beastly projection, rich, complex ingredients. Now it seems like it's a bit of a ghost of itself.
That leather, I now feel is opening up. So if it was a fresh kind of pattern leather at the beginning, I now feel it's a little bit more worn, more the feeling of suede, more the feeling of leather which has been out in the sun.
There's a warmth to it now, isn't there? Whereas before, I think there was a little bit more edge.
And there is a little spicy sweetness to this as well. I haven't looked at I don't know what the notes list.
No, I've not even bothered to look, because I was just keen to see how this thing presented itself.
I feel there is violet leaf in there as well, because I'm still getting that slightly petrolly, asphalty, tarry quality.
It's there, isn't it, for sure?
But I mean,
and there's jasmine. I'm getting more jasmine now.
I think that's what the kind of floral is in the mid, which again gives
patchouli and amber, I think, in the
definitely
strong.
But I think a lot of those qualities, it's interesting. They give it almost a slightly, whilst the opening feels very modern, I think those kind of florals we're talking about in the mid give it a slightly vintage quality.
Yeah, I would buy that, absolutely.
And it's, this doesn't smell like Fahrenheit, but it somehow reminds me of the feel of Fahrenheit, especially if people know the Fahrenheit EDP, which is very different from the original. Yeah. But the violet leaf vibe of that. But anyway,
which is very interesting. I think he's come up with something in a way that's a little bit retro.
Yeah.
For the sort of people out there that like the freshies or the latest sort of thing with a version of crappy cheap oud or fake incense.
No, it's not that at all.
The Armani Profumo, or whatever that is. I smelled that the other day, and again, people go on about the incense in there, and it was just shockingly badly done, I think. And we're not talking about a load cheaper than this. Yeah. And this is so much more bold. I mean, I have to take my hat off to Tom Ford for this one, really.
I mean, I think this is a thumbs up.
Yeah.
Thumbs up from us. I mean, particularly if you're someone who goes through the airports or goes through department stores, covets those private blends and thought, I really like them. I think they're really, they smell really classy, they smell really sophisticated, really interesting, but they're just a bit out of my price range. This is still expensive for a designer fragrance, but I think you achieve what you're hoping for, what you're looking for in the private blend range at half the price. And
of course, the fact that this is by Tom Ford himself means that if you see it in terms of a clone of Tuscan Leather or a reverse engineered fragrance that you get, at least it's from the horse's mouth. I mean, that's the thing. In a way. Again, in our video, one of our earliest videos, we were talking about these alternatives, which are clones, which are Arab tradition is another one. Which are kind of reverse engineered, where someone's trying to copy the DNA. Maybe this is slightly a similar thing, but it's done by the man himself. Yeah. Maybe he's just tweaked his formula. So, as you say, you're better getting it from the horse's mouth. Yeah. And it's half the price of the other one, and the same thing, I think. I think it's a thumbs up from us. Yeah. So Tom Ford, Ombre Leather, check it out. Happy sniffing! Bye.